Last week, we discussed the worst mistake when doing an R&D tax claim. This was to do of not capping costs when a claimant company is connected to the subcontractor. So, do you want to learn the second worst mistake when making an R&D tax claim? If so, stick around and let's go! Welcome to the R&D Tax Show, where we help accountants, tax advisors and their clients claim R&D tax relief. So why is it important for you to know the second worst mistake? Because it has a massive impact on you and your client. If you mess things up, your client will be enraged. So what's the second worst mistake? Drum roll, please. Well, that's a bit over dramatic. Oh well. So the second worst mistake is not claiming under the correct R&D tax scheme. So there are two types of R&D tax scheme. The first is for small and medium enterprises, SME scheme, and the second is the Research and Development Expenditure Credit, RDEC for short. It's important to know the difference between an SME scheme and the RDEC. It's important to know the differences in the two schemes because under an SME scheme, a company can recoup up to 33.35% of its costs, whereas under the RDEC scheme, it can only recoup 10.53%. So the SME scheme is more valuable than the RDEC scheme by about 2/3. The mistake accountants make, and clients who claim themselves, is they'll claim under the SME scheme where they should have been claiming under the RDEC scheme. By doing this, the client overclaims the R&D tax claim by 2/3. And if they get caught, HMRC will penalise them and give them penalties. Anyway, what is an SME for R&D tax purposes? Well, an SME has fewer than 500 employees and a turnover less than 100 million euros or a balance sheet, gross assets, less than 86 million euros. So what falls within the RDEC scheme? Easy. Whatever is not an SME falls under RDEC. Simples. Let's go through an example. Demolition Ltd has 800 employees, a turnover of 60 million euros, and gross assets of 30 million euros. Would Demolition Ltd fall under the RDEC scheme or under the SME scheme? The answer is RDEC because Demolition Ltd has more than 500 employees. It has 800. Big tip 1. Remember, to be an SME, the company has to have less than 500 employees. Let's do a second example. Brickster Ltd has 300 employees, a turnover of 120 million euros, and gross assets of 65 million euros. SME or RDEC? Well, there's less than 500 employees, so that bit is ticked. However, the turnover is 120 million euros, which is more than the 100 million threshold, so it fails that aspect. But remember, to qualify as an SME, either the turnover or the gross assets must be within or below the threshold. In this case, the gross assets are 65 million euros, which is less than the 86 million euro threshold. Thus, Brickster is an SME. I've talked about the SME definition, but like all things tax, it's never that simple. There's further rules that can push your client into the RDEC scheme or into the SME scheme. And not understanding these different rules will obviously cause impact on your clients, and they can have dramatic consequences. And this leads us perfectly for our next worst mistake, which we'll cover next week. So, what can you take away from today? You must ensure that you ask your clients the right questions to determine which scheme they fall under, SME or RDEC. The downside of getting this wrong is it's massive. It's massive because you could overclaim by 2/3 or you can underclaim by 2/3. As a recap, what is an SME? Less than 500 employees and a turnover less than 100 million euros or a balance sheet below 86 million euros. Next week, I'll go through the third worst mistake when making an R&D tax claim. In the meantime, if you've got any questions, just give me a shout and I'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
Our channel is the holy grail to gain knowledge on how you can help your clients claim R&D tax relief. We upload a video every Thursday at 10 AM. These videos can be technical, where we talk about the principles and fundamentals, so grab your notepad and pen. And some are case studies where you can get an idea of real life scenarios whilst enjoying your brew.